What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Tech Dog 101. I'm your host, Nick 101, and as I record this, it is to get into some details about your options for preventing fleas and ticks. So, as always, disclaimers: I am not an expert. I'm not a vet. I am just a guy that worked at a pet store for 10 years, have a little bit of insight, and I'd like to pass that knowledge on to you. So, you have three main options that we're going to talk about, and I feel like we should probably get option number one out of the way, and that is the natural route. So when I say natural, I don't mean just let them run around. Um, but what I mean by that is that it's something the ones that use natural ingredients. Now, this could come in different types. So you could have a collar or drops on the back, um, and so that is one where it's going to be the cheapest, the least effective. And so basically, if you go into the store and you see a $15 flea and tick collar or a $15 flea and tick drop, well, you're going to get about $15 worth of repellent. And for the most part, the natural ones are not going to kill. They're only going to repel. Um, so that comes in any form. Like you have all natural shampoos, collars, and that kind of stuff. So why do we even have them if they're not really going to work as well? Well, the thing is that they do work. Again, they mostly repel. I think that they're usually on average about 70% effective. I do know people that even make their own recipes. So you might be able to find a handy one online that they claim to be more effective than the others. But the reason why natural is always going to be available, not just because we already have the ingredients available, and it's so much easier to use already available ingredients than it is to concoct, ingredients. But also, these are ingredients that Mother Nature uses, and so Mother Nature, far longer than humans have been on the planet, Mother Nature has been adapting ways to get bugs off of its plants, and so if you have something that works now, it's pretty much always going to work as far as we know, unless there's suddenly a bug that develops a immunity to something. I'm gonna make up an ingredient, but I think lemongrass oil or whatever. Lemongrass oil is going to be just as effective repelling them now as it is going to be 30, 40, 50, 60. Your lifetime, it's going to be the same amount of effectiveness. That's never going to go down. Now, the stuff that we invent, the poisonous stuff that does actually kill them, well, that's brand new, and you kill off like what 99.9. So much like super viruses, the super bugs in the hospitals and stuff. When you use a sanitizer and it kills all but zero point zero 0.01, well, the zero point zero 0.01 then it has a resistance and it'll thrive, and it's a lot harder for it to get rid of. Same thing with the bugs. So really, what we're doing is making it more difficult to do flea and tick prevention in the future when we use the more effective poisons that are man-made. So when you go all natural, it's a lot safer, especially if you have a notoriously sensitive dog. So the dog is probably not going to have as much chance of a allergic or negative reaction to something that's natural, because it's just something that it would be coming across in nature anyway. Now, not to say that you might have a dog that has a weird rare allergy, so I'm not saying that it's 100% effective, but it is one of the more safer ones to have, especially when you have kids around. So the downside to some of the other two, external ones, I should say, that you know the drops, especially, like if you put the drops on the back of the neck, for 48 hours you can't go near it. You have to be careful about which bedding and stuff it's laid on. You definitely, if you accidentally forget and give it a pet, you want to wash your hands as thoroughly as possible for at least the 20 seconds with full soap and water before you put anything in your mouth. I made that accident before, and trust me, it was a scary moment. Like my mouth, you know, felt all weird, and the taste just wouldn't go away for a while. So I don't want you to have to go through that like I did. And I'm not even a kid, so try telling a kid to stay away from their favorite animal. So, natural is definitely something to consider. It does have its place, but let's say that you want to have a more effective one. Well, they now we're going to get into the man-made, and they do come in different types, but the main ones are collar, drops, and internal. So when we're dealing with let's just start with the drops, because the drops seem to be pretty popular. and they are very effective. They do have their issues, but it basically the idea about a drop is that you take it in a little container, you put it in the spot just above between their shoulder blades, and then you give it a squeeze. You stay away from that site for 48 hours, and it gets absorbed into the system. And then for a month, it's now in the dog's system. So after 48 hours, if they need a bath, they can get a bath, and it's not going to, take the poison out of their system. So those have been effective for a while. So there's some downsides to that, unfortunately. Like I did mention, well, now you have to watch yourself around its back for at least 48 hours. Ideally a little bit more just to be safe. But also, those ones can have different degrees of effectiveness. So here's something that's extremely frustrating: is that when I was working at the store, it's an expensive drop. So people would be like, well, you know, it's this much for this much for this price, and it goes by pounds. So they were like, well, I have two 10-pound dogs. Can I just take the 20-pound one and then just do half on one, half on the other? And no, you absolutely need to use the full tube of whatever weight range they say, because this is a carefully calculated amount of poison that you're putting into the dog. You want them to be poisonous enough to kill any tiny thing that bites onto them, but not poisonous enough that they get sick, ill effects. And whether or not you did the right dosage, there's still a chance of a dog being reactive to the poisons. So you definitely want to make sure not to mess around with the dosages at all. I mean, this is something that's been carefully researched. That it's that amount for a reason. Also, most people don't do it effectively. They don't get exactly the right spot. A lot of times they forget to take the hair and part it so that it's landing more on bare skin. And even then, some's still going to rub off. So the actual dosage that they get, even if you're as careful as possible, might not be the exact amount that they had intended for you to give to the dog. The downside of this as well is that let's say that it's either ineffective or they do have a reaction to it. Well, now they already have poison in their system, so you can't double down on the poison. So now for at least a month, you have to deal with either the ineffectiveness or the ill effects from it until you can try a different type. So there's that. Just I can't stress enough. Don't double down, and that's including bats. Like if read the instructions carefully. Some flea dips and flea bats and stuff. Just so you know, those are for immediate relief. Some of them don't even kill the eggs. The all natural ones won't kill the eggs. So you might have to keep chasing that. You might have to keep chasing that down the road. So whether you have a flea and tick preventative that in your experience has been 100% effective or not, it is still a good idea to get a flea comb and just occasionally, comb around some of the spots that the, fleas and ticks typically get on. Basically anywhere on the face. And that's up to and including, I mean, like in some weird places like lifting up the lips and stuff, typically around the ears, the folds, and even look way down inside with a flashlight. They'll go into some of the craziest places, but the dog usually does the nose into the bushes, and that's usually where, into the bushes and tall grass first, so that's usually where they first, attach. Other places, obviously, would be, all up in and around the paws. There's so many crooks, crevices that they can get into in the paws. And then, the armpits, belly, there's basically no place that they won't, attach to, because there's so much further they can nestle in between that that's where they like to go. So obviously the shorter the coat, the easier it is to detect, but it's still not a guarantee that you're going to catch them until they start to get a little bit more swollen. So that's why the flea and tick comb is very important. Now, if you're thinking about shaving down your long-haired dog so that it's easier to find potential fleas and ticks, and because you think that it's going to make them cooler in the summer months, just keep in mind that some dogs' coats are actually a protectant against the heat. So if you shave them down, you could actually have them overheat as opposed to making them cooler. So don't try and cheat the system by having it easier. So if you have a long-haired dog and you live in a flea and tick heavy area, good luck. Do your research. Make sure that you're getting, you're not taking away their protection just because you think it'll be easier to find fleas and ticks. But I digress. I just think that that's an important thing to make note of. But yeah, usually the bats and dips are for immediate relief, and then the drops, the collars, the ingestibles, those ones are all supposed to be preventative long term. So sorry, So there actually is an ingestible one that's supposed to be immediate relief. I'm gonna go a little off brand and actually mention brands just because. I'm going to try not to speak ill of any of them. I just want to use them as an example so that you kind of roughly know what I'm talking about. But Capstar was the one I was thinking of in my head, where it's just a pill, it's just a one-time. Don't think it's a monthly one. This is just like, oh God, they're overrun with fleas, or they're over. I don't remember if it's a tick one, but anyway, that's just like a one-time thing. Let's kill all the things, and then now once you wait the appropriate time, usually everything's about 48 hours. 48 hours after the bath, you can now apply a flea and tick monthly solution. So. Um, some of the more common drops, I think probably the biggest name one for, during the time I was at a pet store was Frontline. And so I think it had been around for like about, good handful of years. And when it did first come out, I believe it was the leader in preventative drops. It kills the fleas, it kills the eggs, it kills the, ticks right away. And, it definitely worked great. Now, again, here's the problem with the superbug issue. So, when I was over in, the southwest area where they don't get very many flea and ticks at all, Frontline was still just the one and only thing that you would need. The fleas and ticks, the ones that had come across it had died. There weren't any superbugs, but then when I'm in the Northeast, and we've had flea and tick issues for forever, almost everybody universally uses them on their dogs, and Lyme disease is very prevalent, so you can get a Lyme shot for your dog. But basically, Frontline is quickly becoming less effective than it had been in previous years. All the ones that are around have been exposed to it by now, and so it's just you need a new poison. And so around here, that'd be something like Advantage or Advantix. The difference between Advantage and Advantix, it's the same company. Advantage only does the fleas. Advantix does fleas and ticks, and unfortunately, you can't get Advantix for a cat. So that's how strong the poison is, and they absolutely say make sure that oh yeah, that was another one too. If you have a dog and cat combo, and the cat actually likes cuddling up on the dog, again for those 48 hours, you got to be really careful. Cat doesn't try grooming him or snuggling up or anything. And I believe that they actually Advantix is like, hey, just no cats in the household. Period. We just don't even want to get that lawsuit. So again, every one of them, every box is going to come with not just a long list of stuff on the outside of the box, but they'll all also come with very detailed warnings on the inside too with a piece of paper. I recommend reading through all of it before even applying it. But yeah, drops have been super popular, and I've used them in the past. I've actually had just perfectly fine results besides the accidental tasting it incident. But I've moved on, but I'm just saying that it is something that I've used and it's worked. So there it is. So yeah, you do also have collars. Now, in my experience, up until recently, collars really did not do anything besides maybe keep the fleas and ticks away from the neck, but that was about it. And then came along the Seresto collar, and this thing is a beast. Basically, it's a regular flea and tick collar, just like the gray things that go around their neck, and this one is supposed to be able to work for 8 months, which is just unheard of. I don't believe there's any other product in the market that claims to be able to do flea and tick prevention for 8 whole months. And the other thing that I love about it is that there has been I can count on one hand because I can't remember the exact number right now. Numbers mean nothing in this podcast anyway. If I say 90%, I have not done any research, so I can at the most count on one hand the amount of people that have returned to Seresto because their animal had a reaction to it. Well, here's the beautiful part about using the collar. You can take it off. You can take it off, and whatever was on the collar is, probably out of their system in just a matter of a couple of days. So you can take it off for baths, and then just put it right back on again afterwards. You can take it off for, playtime, and then just put it on right back on again afterwards. Because that's the problem with the collars. So one of the downsides, so the good side is that you can actually take it off. Downside is that when dogs play, they like to chew on each other's necks, so you might accidentally lose a expensive collar that you could have had for 8 months, but you didn't take it off for playtime. So keep that in mind. It's something that's unfortunate, but it does happen. But yeah, that's definitely one thing where, oh no, it's not working. They have a reaction. Well, you take it off. A couple days later, you wait and see, and then you can try a different method. So I think that that it definitely is effective. I personally have had good experiences. Again, I haven't done enough research to know what percentage there's a reaction to. I know that at least what the customers have told me that reactions have happened. But again, that is something that'll happen even with an all natural, ingredient. I mean, we've just inbred dogs so much to the point where it's like there's always going to be a small chance that one of them might have a health issue that most normal hardy wolves would not have ever had. A wolf isn't going to break out if you rub it with a lemon. Well, you know what? There might be a way too bred of a dog that could. So none of this is guaranteed. You're always going to take a risk if you're um, you know giving something to a dog that is naturally found in their system anyway. So that's including their food. That's including the detergent that you use on their bedding. So just this is something to keep in mind where nobody's out there to intentionally harm your animal. Certainly not the person that sold it to you. So I don't know why people for some reason think that people would get into the pet industry in order to help poison dogs around the world. But that's the reaction that we feel that we get when people come in to return a product that their dog reacted to. Um, so yeah, just something to keep in mind. So those usually come in predetermined. Sorry, real quick, not the collars. The drops I forgot to mention. Um, you have to get them in either 2, 4, or 6, or 3 or 6 packages. They don't sell them individually. The only way to get it individually is through a vet or through a lot of groomers will have the single packets. But if you're going to be buying them retail, you have to get them in multiple. So no, we can't take one out and give it to you. Like, that's not how it works. So please don't ask the clerk. You can tell I've had to deal with this already. So yeah. So for the Seresto, it's pretty straightforward. There's a cat, there's a large dog, and there's a small dog. And it kind of makes sense because it's like, basically based on the size of the neck, they're going to get roughly the amount that they should. And like I said, very few reactions, but, at your own risk, experience may vary. So now there's one that I stayed away from, unfortunately, because the person that we got our dog from, Lila the Lab, we got her from, apparently she had a bad incident with the ingestible one, or she did some research that supported her theory. I'm not sure, but she said, "Oh, don't ever do the edible flea and tick prevention. It's horrible." Never really got into why, and then later on, I was talking with vet techs and other people, and apparently the ingestible one makes the most sense. Uh, so, as I was saying earlier, it's like this is a carefully calculated dosage of poison. And so when you do the external stuff, I mean, the flea collar might be hanging too loose. The drops might not have, taken like you wanted them to. Well, with the ingestible one, it definitely got inside the mouth. The dog definitely swallowed it all. It definitely passed through the system and spread into the system before, they pooped out the remnants. So it's definitely the most exact as far as getting the right dosage for them. And and again, it's just that person that told me against them probably had a reaction and thought, oh, it was the edible, and that's why. Well, they could have easily gotten a reaction from the drops, for all we know. It's just how it happened. But I've actually the more I've been looking into it, the more it makes sense doing the edible ones. I believe it's the same. I believe you give them one every month, or maybe even one every 3 months. You'd have to double check me on that, but it is more of a monthly thing. Again, I don't know of anyone that lasts as long as 8 months like the collar does. But when you do the ingestible ones, one thing that's really kind of cool about them is that not only do I believe it's yet an even newer poison, so much like how Advantage has an advantage over Frontline because it's newer, and therefore they're not as, fleas and ticks aren't as used to that poison. But also, I believe the ingestible ones are newer, but the ingestible ones can also do multiple things. So what's cool about them is that they can, and definitely double check me on this, but I believe that they actually have like heartworm and flea and tick combos. So you can deal with the external and internal parasites all in one easy swallow pill. I mean, that's kind of nice. Then you only have to think about one pill versus multiple ones. And while we're on the subject, I mean, since we're talking about parasites, internal ones can be just as scary, if not more so, than the external ones. And heartworm's a big one. Like, I don't know if I need to get into too much detail, but that's one where I mean, it's just like it sounds. I mean, can you imagine having worms in your heart? I mean, that alone is just nope from me. But, just so you know, you will never be able to get. I know this is not flea and tick, and I apologize, but this is just something that has come up pretty often. You can't just get an over the counter heartworm. And here's why. You absolutely have to get heartworm tested by the vet before you can get any heartworm medication, because it's a really weird thing, but if they don't have heartworms, heartworm medication will prevent them from getting heartworms. Pretty straightforward. If they already do have heartworms, it's almost like it acts like a steroid. It actually makes their heartworm problem even worse if you give them a heartworm preventative when they already have heartworms. So they absolutely have to get tested for heartworms before you can get prescribed the medication. So never ask for over-the-counter heartworm from a pet store. You absolutely have to go through the vet, and that's the very understandable reason why. It, it was at least a daily question, so that's why I had to get into that real quick. So ingestibles, it seems, at least through my very limited research, please again, as always, do your own research when it comes to these subjects that I talk to you about, because I'm not an expert, but from what it seems like, the ingestible ones seem to make the most sense. Um, right now, my personal fan favorite just happens to be the collar because of just um, the ease of it, the familiarity with it. I know it works on her. I know that we have not found any fleas or ticks latched onto her since we started her on using it. She seems to be fine with it. It's easy enough to take on and off her baths, or if I know that she's going to get pretty dirty in a puppy playtime. Plus I just don't want the other dogs having it in their mouth. There's never seemed to be a reaction from a dog having the flea, having this resto collar, in another dog's mouth. But just to keep that from happening. But again, that's something that the ingestible one would have over it. It's just you don't have to worry about taking anything on or off. It's inside now, and so it can be able to, much like once the drops have absorbed, it's inside now. So you can kind of do what you want with the outside of the dog as normal, and now it's just circulating around in the system. So that's that basically. So you have the natural options. You have some external options. You have some internal options. Um, you definitely have, like like I said, the Lyme shot, which by the way, they don't tell you ahead of time, but it's a twofer. Much like some of the vaccines that have recently come out for us humans, the Lyme disease, at least the one that we got, is a twofer, which we wish we had known, just ahead of time, because it was one of those where, we got it and we were going on vacation very soon afterwards, and the window for when you can have it, it's like either you just got one, you didn't get the second one, and now the first one doesn't work at all. But you also can't get the second one too soon. So we had a very thin window between when we got the first one and when we had to leave, and we were kind of upset because we almost couldn't make the appointment. So it would have been a bit of a waste of money. So just keep that in mind. Ask ahead of time. Hey, how many rounds is this? That kind of thing. We wish we had, but yes, we got the Lyme one, and thankfully we haven't had to worry about if it's working or not, because so far, any knock on wood, no fleas, but so far, the tick season this year is ridiculous already, and we've already found, I want to say five on her, and so far, not one of them has actually been dug in. In fact, one of them we found on her dead. So that's the thing, is that we don't know for a fact if it was a dead one that she laid on, and because it just happened to get stuck to her fur, or if it had actually like managed to bite in and then died instantly, and it was just a husk by the time we found it. But all I'm saying is that it's working for us, so that's what we're sticking with. But I have been looking into the internal stuff. I suggest you do too. And again, always talk to your regular vet. The place that I work for actually has a traveling clinic, which is nice, cheap, rabies vaccinations and stuff. But I always recommend that you have a full-time vet that you can ask these questions about. See what they might recommend. Do research, go to forums, talk to dog owners, talk to all those people for your stuff. But that should be a pretty good start on if you're looking to do some flea and tick prevention. So good luck, and hopefully keep the critters off.